Welcome in to Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan Lugo. Thank you so much for tuning in. We all know the Jaguars put some weaknesses on tape last week for the entire NFL to see, for the entire world to see. Pass protection wasn't great. Too many penalties. Coverage down the field wasn't great. The pass rush did not get enough pressure on Carson Wentz. We know that. The Colts know that. But right now, we're going behind enemy lines to break down some of the weaknesses that the Colts put on display in Week 1 in a tie with the division rival Houston Texans. Some chinks in the armor that we noticed in Week 1, some things the Jaguars might try to exploit in Week 2 as they host the Colts, and a matchup where the winner could be in the driver's seat in the division after a winless week in the AFC South in Week 1. Hit me up on Twitter at Jordan DeLugo. Let me know what you think about everything here. You can follow Generation Jaguar at Generation Jag. If you're on YouTube, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. If you want to support the channel further, you can go pick up a new hat or shirt on GenJag.com right now. Link in the description below. All right, so looking at some of the Colts' weaknesses that I've gathered from their Week 1 performance against the Texans, in which they were down 20-3 very late in that football game. Their defense, pretty much a sound defense overall, right? You got a lot of good pieces. You've got Gus Bradley calling the shots now as the defensive coordinator. A lot of quality pieces. It's been one of the better defenses in football. Believe they're 12th in defensive DVOA through 1 week, but they did have one big glaring weakness on that defense. They could not defend the seam shots. O.J. Howard, who the Texans signed less than a week before facing the Colts, scored 2 touchdowns on seam shots. Covering that middle of the field in between the linebackers and the safeties in that zone defense. The Colts were very susceptible, gave up a ton of yardage in that area. Again, O.J. Howard scored 2 touchdowns. How does that relate to the Jaguars? You've got Evan Ingram, you've got Dan Arnold. Both of these tight ends can really push the seam. They have the verticality, the athleticism to do that, to take advantage of that weakness that the Colts put on tape last week. Now, you look at their linebackers, they've got quality linebackers. Bobby Okereke. Can Shaq Leonard return in this one for the Colts, dealing with a back injury? Fully participated in practice on Wednesday, so we'll see. But in between those linebackers and safeties, it wasn't pretty. Julian Blackmon did not have one of his better games in coverage. Kenny Moore, another one, did not have a very good game in coverage. He's had a couple bad games in a row dating back to last season. Can the Jaguars take advantage? I think with Evan Ingram and Dan Arnold, you're going to see them try to hit some of those seam shots. I also think you're going to see Travis Etienne out of the backfield, pushing the seams, pushing vertically on some routes out of the backfield, maybe in the slot. And of course, Christian Kirk, who was feeding on the Washington defense, killing them over the middle of the field. You could see him on some seam shots as well. I think the Jaguars will try to attack that area of the field until the Colts prove that they have locked it down, that they have figured out what the issue was in that regard. Switching sides of the ball, the Colts offense, they moved the ball quite a bit throughout the day, but they only put up 20 points. They struggled to finish drives for most of the game. One of their issues here is the right side of the offensive line, and pass protection really, I think, is susceptible. When you look at Braden Smith, who's had a pretty good career over at right tackle for the Colts, but really struggled last week against the Houston Texans, gave up a lot of pressure, especially in clear passing situations. So if you can get them in these clear passing situations, which the Jaguars did a good job of getting into those situations last week defensively, they just didn't capitalize with their pass rush. But when you look at Braden Smith at right tackle, Danny Pinter at right guard, I think those two playing next to each other, there's a decent possibility that the Jaguars can attack that right side of the offensive line when they're in clear passing situations. Keep an eye on that. Matt Ryan. He made some uncharacteristic mistakes last week. 4 turnover-worthy plays, threw an interception on a screen pass, which we're all familiar with here in Jacksonville. Trayvon Walker picked off a screen from Carson Wentz last week. The center quarterback exchange under center from Ryan Kelly to Matt Ryan. A little wonky last week. Very interesting. Matt Ryan with 4 turnover-worthy plays. Will that continue? Will that snowball? It was his first game in a new offense with a bunch of new pieces that he's never played with before. Is he going to rebound? Or could the Jaguars potentially force some more turnovers? The Jaguars forced 3 turnovers themselves last week. Again, picking off a screen pass with Trayvon Walker. Tyson Campbell jumping a route on the outside. Josh Allen forcing a fumble. I think you're going to need to watch Matt Ryan in this one. Does he put the ball in harm's way like he did last week? Foye Oluokun is very familiar with him as they used to practice with each other or against each other every single day. Mike Caldwell, former linebacker coach for the Falcons, faced Matt Ryan twice a year, several years in a row. Can these Jaguars make Matt Ryan continue to put the ball in harm's way? We'll see. Similarly to the Jaguars, the Colts really struggled to finish and to convert in the red zone. If you can force them to kick field goals, who knows what's going to happen? They're going to have a new kicker back there this week, and they don't even know who it's going to be yet. They've got 2 players they signed to their practice squad to come in and compete for the job. They're going to call one of them up. If you're forcing them to kick field goals, you could be in a really good situation. I know the Jaguars have confidence in Riley Patterson. He missed 1, but he made several more for the Jaguars. Colts are going to be playing with someone who was not on their roster last week. Rodrigo Blankenship did not get the job done for the Colts. They decided to move on. They're going to have a new kicker this week. So if you can continue to force them to kick field goals, you could be in a really good situation here. Our final chink in the armor for the Colts, it's injuries. The Jaguars have a completely clean injury report right now. They do not have any injuries that they're worrying about. The Colts, on the other hand, have a handful of injuries to pretty important players here. We're going to look at those right now. And, of course, you feel bad for these players that they're dealing with injuries, but that's something, if you're a team playing in a game, you need to take advantage of. DeForest Buckner did not participate in practice with a hip injury on Wednesday. He is their best defensive lineman, one of the best interior defensive linemen in the game. He's never missed a game in the NFL. In his 7-8 year career, he has been 100% good to go. He's battled through injuries before. Is he going to be able to battle through this one? If he's not available, that's a big void in the middle of that Colts defensive line. Alec Pierce, rookie wide receiver, dropped a touchdown pass last week. He did not participate in practice Wednesday. He's in the concussion protocol after having some symptoms after the game. If he's out, the Colts wide receiver group looks much more depleted, much less athletic, much less physically imposing. Kenny Moore and Michael Pittman, they're both limited participants in practice, so you expect them to be able to gut it out. Kenny Moore's dealing with a hip, Michael Pittman with a quad. And then this is the biggest one, Shaq Leonard, the heart and soul of the Colts defense at linebacker. He practiced fully in this one. He hasn't played after having a fairly significant back injury. This was his first full practice since recovering from that back injury. Is he going to be able to go in week 2 against the Jaguars? If not, you're going to see a lot more of Franklin, their linebacker number 44, and Bobby Okereke. But if any of these guys are to miss time, it gives the Jaguars an advantage. If any of them are not 100%, it gives the Jaguars an advantage. Those are my Colts' weaknesses. Their defense is susceptible to seam shots right now. The Jaguars have plenty of players that can exploit that matchup. Braden Smith and Danny Pinter on the right side, I thought they struggled in pass protection. I think the Jaguars could potentially take advantage of that. Matt Ryan, 4 turnover-worthy plays. Really uncharacteristic mistakes by him, putting the ball in harm's way. And then, of course, the Colts struggling to convert in the red zone, not knowing what they're doing at kicker. That could be an advantage for you. And, as I just mentioned, the injuries for the Colts. Jaguars are in a great injury situation. The Colts might not be. We're going to find out here in the coming days. That is going to do it. Follow me on Twitter at Jordan DeLugo, Generation Jaguar, at Generation Jag. Please like and subscribe on YouTube. If you want to support the channel further, go pick up a new hat or shirt on genjag.com. You can also become a channel member here. We've got some great perks you can check out. There are links in the description below. Thanks so much for tuning in, Duval. Have a great rest of your Thursday.